Animation from Pool World, and tonight we have a special guest here, Randy Darby. He's going to go over the proper chemistry and how to protect your pool for the wintertime use. So with that said, here's Randy Darby.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, everybody. Sorry we got started a little bit late. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but thank you for joining us. As Dan said, my name is Randy Darby. I'm with BioGuard Pool and Spa Products, and I'm going to teach you everything you wanted to know or maybe didn't want to know about winterizing your pool properly. We'll probably go about half hour, 45 minutes. If you do have some questions, just type them into Facebook Live and we'll answer them as we go through. But with that, I'm going to get started. Thank you again for joining us. And really the first thing, as far as kind of our main objectives of winterizing the pool properly, is we want to make sure really these three things. We want to make sure that when you open up that pool next spring, you don't have the green monster. The pool hasn't turned into an algae swamp. It's crystal clear, basically ready to swim with a little bit of work. And we typically do a spring school as well, talk about how to open your pool. We also want to make sure that we're inhibiting any growth of algae, so again, you don't get the green swamp. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how to protect the pool surfaces, plumbing lines, those kind of things, because it obviously gets cold here in Spokane. We want to make sure that we don't have any freeze damage issues as well. So first things first, we want to make sure that we don't close the pool too early. And kind of what we use as the key factor of when to close a pool is based on the water temperature of your pool. When the water temperature gets down in this 60-65 degree range, that's when we recommend winterizing the pool. The reason for that is the products that we're going to put in that we need them to last 4 or 5 months work better when the water is colder. We leave the water temperature up in the 75-80 degree range, the chemicals aren't going to last as long, and we may have to reapply product a little bit sooner. So if we close it too soon, you may have some problems earlier in the spring, next spring. We also don't want to cover up any problems. So if you've got, algae now, you've got cloudy water, maybe you've got some ash in the pool from all the smoke that we've been getting. I'll touch a little bit more on that in a minute. We really want to take care of those problems first before we shut the pool down. And speaking of the smoke and ash that can get into the pool, is we want to make sure that we take care of this issue before we shut the pool down. Is the smoke and ash can cause a couple of different problems. Probably the biggest thing is it can cause chlorine to dissipate faster. You may have noticed that you're having a little bit more difficult time keeping your chlorine in check. So make sure you're maybe stepping up your water testing practices a little bit sooner. Instead of maybe once or twice a week, maybe step it up to 3 or 4 times a week and pay particular attention to the pH of the water and your sanitizer level, your chlorine level, or if it's a soft swim pool, the soft swim sanitizer level. Take note that the pH does tend to rise as you get ash in the pool, so don't be surprised if you're having to add a little bit of pH decreaser periodically. You may need to step up your shocking frequency because the ash in the water tends to, again, cause the chlorine to be depleted. We may need to shock a little bit more frequently, and in some cases we may have you add what's called a non-chlorine shock called oxysheen if you've got real high combined chlorine levels. Make sure you're adding your weekly preventative algicide. Run your pump 24 hours a day. Sometimes the folks at Pool World may recommend some troubleshooting products like water clarifiers and flocculants that can help speed the process of getting a cloudy pool cleared up. Watch your filter pressure as well. If you're noticing that the filter pressure is going up more than about 8 to 10 pounds above the clean pressure, it's time to backwash the filter. If it's a sand filter, if it's a cartridge filter, probably want to pull those out and rinse them off real well. So just a couple of tips if you are seeing some ash in your pool. All right, so once we're ready to winterize the pool, water temperatures drop below 65 degrees. Now we're ready to start preparing for winter. And the first step is really getting the water properly balanced. So I highly recommend bring a water sample into Pool World. They do free computerized water testing, but they're going to test a number of things: pH of the water, total alkalinity, calcium hardness, cyanuric acid levels, total dissolved solids. They'll test for metals. We want to get that water perfectly balanced. And probably the most important of these is the pH of the water. That controls how acidic the water is or how alkaline the water is, and we want to have the pH, hopefully like you've been doing all summer, we want to have that pH between 7.4 and 7.6, and we want the same thing when we winterize the pool. If it's too low, the water's aggressive, it's corrosive. If it's too high, then the water tends to be scale forming. So we'll help you get all of these dialed into the proper range, because that water's going to be sitting for months, and if it's not properly balanced, it can cause some damage to the pool surfaces. Again, correct any existing problems, remove any dissolved metals from the water. So one of the tests that they'll do in the store is they will test for copper and iron. If there's copper and iron in the water, there's some products that we can put in that will prevent those from staining the pool. All right, so we've got the water properly balanced. Then the next step, this is probably the least fun part of really pool operations, pool maintenance at all, but getting it clean. So things like skimming the pool surface, brushing the walls, the bottom of the pool, that gets anything growing on the walls out into the water where either the filter or chemicals could remove it. Vacuum the pool. We want to get that pool as clean as possible so that the chemicals are going to last longer. The cleaner the pool is, the longer the winterizing chemicals will last. There are a couple of cleaning chemicals that we can use. We want to chemically clean the filter. This is probably the most important time of year to chemically clean your filter, is before you winterize it. And the folks at Pool World will help determine which is the best filter cleaner. We really have three: Strip Quick, Clean It, and Sauceman Filter Cleaner. It kind of depends on your pool and the water chemistry, but we want to chemically clean the filter so that we get any greases and oils, scale deposit out of those filters so they don't harden over the winter. Off the wall, this is a cleaner for the water line. So if you've got kind of a ring around the pool, scum line, maybe a mineral deposit, and it doesn't matter if it's a vinyl pool, fiberglass, tile, we can remove those deposits. Again, it's kind of the same principle as cleaning your filter. We want to get that material off the water line so that it doesn't harden over the winter and be difficult to remove next spring. And then any of you that have a salt water system where you're putting salt in the pool, the water runs through what we call an electrolytic generator that makes chlorine. We want to make sure that cell has been chemically cleaned before you winterize it. So we'll recommend a product called Saltscape Cell Cleaner that will get the deposits, especially the scale deposits, out of the cell so that it's ready to go next spring when you open up the pool. All right, so we took care of the water balancing, the housekeeping chores. Now we're ready to look at really the winterizing products that we're going to put in. And we packaged two different kits. One that'll treat up to 12,000 gallons of water and one up to 24,000 gallons of water. So if you've got a 8,000 gallon above ground pool, you put the whole 12,000 gallon kit in. If you've got a 30,000 gallon pool, you put in a 24,000 gallon kit and a 12,000 gallon kit. These are up to 12, up to 24. We'd rather overdose it. It's better to put a little bit more in so that it's going to last longer. And here's what's in the kit. It's pretty simple. There's just two products in the kit. The first product that we're going to put in is a long-lasting winter shock. This is called Arctic Blue Shock. This will establish a fairly high chlorine level. It'll oxidize organic contaminants out of the water. It's easy to apply. The 12,000 gallon kit has one bottle. The 24,000 gallon kit has two bottles. You pour them into the deep end of the pool, pump and filter circulating, and allow this to circulate for an hour. And we've now added our Arctic Blue Shock. It's that simple. This is going to establish a fairly high chlorine level that's going to last a long time. The second product that we're going to put in an hour later, this is called Arctic Blue Algae Protector. This is a long-lasting winter algicide that will prevent green algae, black algae, mustard algae throughout the winter and into next spring. The 12,000 gallon kit has a pint. The 24,000 gallon kit has a quart. Those are the two main products that we're going to put in. We're going to establish a fairly high chlorine level and a high level of algicide in the water that we need it to last, a number of months. Now, one of the questions people ask quite often is how long are these products going to last? And that's kind of the $1 million question. It depends on how clean the pool is when you winterize it, how properly balanced the water is, was the water temperature below 65 degrees, do you cover the pool or leave it uncovered, those kind of things. I definitely would recommend once the ice melts next spring, as soon as it melts, bring a water sample into the store just so we can double check it to see if we still have enough of these winterizing products in the water. In some cases, if it's been a very mild winter, we might need to apply a second treatment. There's a number of money-saving coupons in the box as well that you could use here in the store. A couple of other things that we can use. If you have a white plaster pool, a concrete pool, we will recommend what's called an Arctic Blue Winter Floater. This is a disposable floater that has some chlorine in it that keeps a little more trickle of chlorine going into the water all winter. We can't use this in a vinyl or fiberglass pool. It's a little bit too strong. It could cause a little bit of bleaching on the surface. So this is white plaster pools only. You only need to put in one of these. This will treat up to 35,000 gallons, and this will keep a little bit more chlorine going in, giving you a little bit of extra protection all winter. And then really the last product, this is called Pool Closing Complete. This is a product that protects the surface of the pool, prevents scaling, staining. We'll put in one bottle of this for up to 25,000 gallon pool, and that's really the last step from a chemical treatment. It's really that simple. Put in the winter kit, if you've got a white plaster pool, a winter floater, and then the last step in all pools is Pool Closing Complete to again protect the pool from staining, scaling, waterline buildup, that type of thing throughout the winter. So to kind of recap from a chemical standpoint, we're going to put our winter kits in, Arctic Blue Floater if you've got a white plaster pool, Pool Closing Complete, we'll clean our filter. I'll talk a little bit more about stowaway at the end when we talk about what type of cover you can cover your pools with, but this is a cover cleaner for winter covers and solar blankets. And then for those of you that use soft swim, instead of chlorine in your pool, soft swim is a non-chlorine system, so we don't use the winter kits on that system. We have to use the actual soft swim products. This is again a non-chlorine system. Pretty simple to winterize a soft swim pool. We're going to add 1 quart of soft swim A, which is the algicide. We're going to add 1 gallon of soft swim C, which is the shock treatment, and then we're going to top the soft swim B level up to 50 parts per million. The folks at Pool World will help you do that. They'll test the soft swim B level and help you top it back up to 50 parts per million. And then really the last product that we'll put in to help prevent waterline buildup is Natural Result. Do we have a question?
Yeah, Gordon wants to know, he has an epoxy coated plaster gunite pool, and he wants to know if he should still use the Arctic Blue floater.
I would not recommend the Arctic Blue floater unless you have a white plaster pool only. If it's an epoxy painted type surface, I would not recommend the floater. It's got to be pretty much white plaster only. Otherwise, we have the potential for bleaching it. Thank you. Good question. All right, so this is again for soft swim pools. If you got any particular questions on soft swim, please let us know. And then really the last thing, so we covered pretty simply all of the water chemistry pieces of putting a pool to bed properly. The next step, which is also really important, is how to winterize the equipment and the plumbing lines so that we don't have any freeze damage. And there's really a couple of different methods of winterizing pools. That here in Spokane, which is obviously a cold climate where freezing will occur, we do a little bit more aggressive winterizing treatment as far as freeze damage protection. I live north of Seattle, and over there we just let the pools run all winter. They don't drain the water down, they don't blow the lines out, they just keep them running all winter. But over here we need to take a little bit more aggressive method with this, and so we're going to do the cold climate winterization where temperatures get below freezing. And the whole thing here is when temperatures get below freezing, the thing that we're mainly concerned with is not the water freezing in the pool, but the water freezing in the equipment or the plumbing lines. Because as you all know, when water freezes, it expands and stuff breaks. So pumps and filters, heaters, that type of thing. So we want to make sure that all of the water is out of the equipment, out of the plumbing lines. That's the basic principle of this. where in some cases, depending on whoever built your pool, if you've got an in-ground pool, you might want to check with your pool builder on what their recommendations for this procedure are. Some builders want the water level down below the skimmer, some don't. It varies. If you've got an above ground pool, a lot of times it's pretty simple with an above ground pool. You can just disconnect the equipment, even move the equipment inside into the garage to protect it. That's real easy. Typically, we're not going to have a lot of interim maintenance if we're going to use this, full winterization method. Where again, we're going to lower the water level in some cases. Again, check with your pool builder on what they recommend, but we'll lower the water level. And I don't know if you can see very well in this slide right here, we're actually blowing the water out of the plumbing lines. And so we want to evacuate all of the water out of the plumbing lines so that if we do get harsh freezing temperatures, there's no water left in those plumbing lines so that it can freeze and expand and break. So what we'll do is we'll blow the water out, and then we'll put plugs in there so that water can't get back in when it rains or snows and that water level comes back up, that we've isolated those plumbing lines so no water can get back into the system. There's a few different things that we can do to protect the skimmer. This is on a pool where they're putting a faceplate so water can't get back into the skimmer. In this picture, this little blue device that you see here, this is called a gizmo, and that goes down in the skimmer where that when water does get in the skimmer, if it does freeze and expands, this takes kind of, you might say, the punishment where it absorbs the expansion so that we're not cracking the skimmer area by the expansion of water in the skimmer. So real critical to protect that skimmer from freeze damage. We want to make sure that all of the water is drained out of the equipment. So this is a sand filter. You can see where the water is draining out of the filter. We want to turn the power off to the pump, turn the gas off to the heater. Again, drain all the water from the equipment. Again, as I mentioned earlier, with above ground pools, quite often this could be really easy where we can just disconnect the equipment. We've drained the water down below the skimmer. We disconnect the equipment. We can put the equipment in the garage. If you have a sand filter with a multi-port valve like this, most of those filters have a winter setting. And basically what that does is it takes the pressure off the gasket. So make sure you put the valve in the winter position. If you don't have a winter setting, just put it in between settings. So again, it's taking the pressure off of the gasket. Again, the whole principle here is we want to get all the water out of the equipment, out of the plumbing lines, and those would be the kind of the key factors. Now, a lot of folks, one of the services they do here at Pool World is they've got a service department. They will come out, winterize your pool. So if you've got questions on winterization, give them a call and they can set up an appointment to come out and winterize your pool. If you've got any questions on winterization of the equipment, this is not 100% my expertise. We've got a couple of people here, so if you do have a question on the equipment piece of this, just type into Facebook and we'll answer those. This is really not an option, this off-season pool care. This is how we winterize pools in the Seattle area, where we keep the pools circulating all winter. This is really not a good option here in the Spokane area because of the freezing temperatures that you get here. Now, really the last thing is deciding how or if you're going to cover the pool. I definitely recommend covering the pool with some type of a cover. There's really 3 different types of covers. There's a solid cover like you see on these. This is an above ground solid cover. This is an in-ground solid cover. From a chemical standpoint, these are probably the best because they don't allow water into the pool to dilute the chemicals that we're putting in, but they're also a little bit more difficult to maintain because then you get the pool on top of the pool. So there's kind of pros and cons to all of these covers. I definitely would talk to the sales staff at Pool World about which would be best for you. Couple things on these. We want to make sure the covers don't get pulled too tight so that when it does rain or snow, it pulls the cover in the pool and defeats the purpose of putting the cover on the pool. So that's a solid cover. This is a couple of different types of mesh covers. This is a mesh cover that's held down by water tubes. This is a full safety mesh cover. So the deal with the mesh cover is now you're not going to get the rain pooling up on the cover, but you're going to get rain in the pool, and you're going to get some fine debris in the pool, so the winterizing chemicals don't last quite as long with a mesh cover. So again, whether you got a mesh cover or solid cover or don't cover the pool, we want to make sure that as soon as the ice melts next spring or late winter, bring a water sample into the store and let us test especially the chlorine and the pH levels. And then if you've got an automatic cover, I think you guys are typically recommending keeping those spooled up. We don't recommend keeping the automatic covers on the pool during the winter. The reason for that is that if we get too much rain or snow on top of the cover, that can be damaging to the cover. So we'd really prefer to put some other type of cover on the pool so that we allow that automatic cover, which is a pretty expensive cover, it lasts as long as possible. And then some people don't cover the pool. And so, obviously the pool looks better without a cover on it, but there's some downsides to not covering the pool. The chemicals that we put in aren't going to last as long. Also, any debris that gets into the pool, you'll also want to keep vacuuming that out throughout the winter, because if we get a bunch of debris in the pool, number one, the winterizing products that we put in aren't going to last as long. Plus, that debris laying on the bottom of the pool can stain the pool, and we don't want that either. So if you leave the pool uncovered, that's great, but you just want to keep a little bit closer eye. I test the chlorine level, the pH levels at least once a month. Vacuum the pool as needed. You may need to get some type of a portable vacuum, because again, your equipment's going to be down. You're not going to be able to run your normal vacuum through your skimmer system, so you'll need to have some type of a portable vacuum to get that material vacuumed out. And then, as I mentioned earlier, then we've got a cleaner to help clean your either your solar blanket. Right now, when you're getting ready to pull your solar blanket off for the winter, and then when you clean your winter cover next spring, we'll use a product called Stowaway. Question?
Someone asked, my lowest return is about 24 inches below the water line. Is it okay to drain 6 inches below that return?
I might leave that to Dan.
Just go right below the return line for blowing out.
So just do it right below the return line is what Dan's saying.
Yeah, so even if it's 24 inches, I mean, it depends on the pool. Fiberglass and some others, you might have more issues if it's going down that far. But generally speaking, as long as you have a foot in the shallow end, you can take the water level down, blow all the equipment out, plug it, and then bring the water level back up to kind of give the structure a little more support.
And really what Dan's talking about, kind of the reason we want to get it down below that return, just to make sure all of the water's out, right, Dan?
That way it's properly
And all the plugs are in, yeah.
Yeah, and all the plugs are in, and then as Dan said, bring that water level back up, because again, that's the only true proof that we've got all the water out of the plumbing lines.
Correct. And they do have special plugs that kind of act like a valve, so you could keep one of those in there and blow it out, but it's just to be for sure you got all the plumbing out. It's better to have the water level below so you can see it all out, plug it, and then bring the water level back up.
Thanks, Dan. And again, really, last thought is don't close the pool too soon. It's still, I think when I checked the temperature earlier today, it was still in the mid 70s. I'm not sure what your water temperature is in the pool. It's probably still above 65 degrees. Definitely wait until that water temperature gets down. If you're not using the pool right now, just do your normal maintenance. Keep the chlorine level between 1 and 3 parts per million. Test the pH once a week. Keep it at between 7.2 and 7.6 until you're ready to close the pool and that water temperature gets down, and then you can start the process. Any other questions?
Not so far. Does anyone else?
Oh, all right. Well, thank you folks for joining us. Dan, you want to add anything else? I think, are we having some kind of a drawing tonight?
Yeah, so people that registered and clicked on attending and showed up and all that, we'll be giving away some free winter kits, for those lucky viewers. And then also tomorrow we'll be doing a customer appreciation day. Normally during the pool school we have a special discount on winter kits, all that. So just stop by Pool World tomorrow. You get at least 10% off on your winter kits, any of your winter products you need, etc. And that'll be for tomorrow.
And we will be, you know, this will be posted on Facebook, so if you want to watch it later and review it, if you've got, you know, maybe missed something or have a question you want to review, or for sure, if you've got a question, please call any of the sales staff at Pool World. They're all trained. We'll be able to answer any of your questions. We want to help you get your pool winterized so you're ready to enjoy your pool next spring. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.